Hi there, everyone. My name's Rob, and I wanted to talk about my experience with active addiction, recovery, and relationships. Um, I started experimenting with drugs in my late teens. Um, my drug of choice was marijuana, Mary Jane, weed, pot, whatever you want to call it. I did in my 20s play around a little bit with amphetamines like speed, but it just wasn't what I wanted. Or, yeah, weed was my drug of choice. Um, so in my early 20s, I had a partner, girlfriend, um, or late teens, and I was smoking weed, using, if you want to call it using or smoking weed, a fair bit. I wouldn't say every day of the week, but it did get to that point. Um, Me and my partner got married and eventually had children, but I never stopped using. Um, at first, it was it was cool. Everyone I knew or hung around smoked weed as well. It was just something we all did. I had mates come over, yeah, we'd smoke weed and have a few beers and just basically have a good time. It was it was just something we did. I never thought nothing of it. I never thought I was a drug addict. I thought weed was harmless. I really did. I thought the worst thing about it was the effects of smoking it that could come back on me later on in life. But I always thought, oh, I might be doing it then. Everything would be fine. Um, so I started when I was working. I was bad tempered all the time, and the only thing that I could control that temper with was coming home and smoking weed. So it got to that point where I would just every day, I started doing it. The $25 a week habit become the $50 a week habit, become the $100 a week, and so on and so on. Then you start thinking in your head, oh, I'll do it differently. I'll buy it in larger amounts, so it works out cheaper. um, which is just how it works on you, like the way it affects you. So I would got to a point, um, probably my late 20s, of using every day, throughout the day. Sometimes I would do it before work just to give me that lift to go to work. I work in a labor intensive job, and I was at a point where I was sick of working, but I didn't know what else to do. I'd tried moving jobs. I'd done all those sorts of things that addicts do. Um, you change jobs, you try and do things geographically because you think that's what's making you unhappy, but what it is you actually just can't live life the way it's meant to be lived. So I got to a point where I was moving jobs, still using non-stop. I actually went to jobs where there was people who smoked more weed than me, and I could get it through work. It actually become easier to get my drug of choice. So throughout my late 20s, early 30s, yeah, it just got to that everyday use point. First thing I do is wake up in the morning and smoke weed, and as soon as I started straightening out again, I would smoke weed again, and just continue to do it. Always looking for that better high or something like that. But what it was doing, it was making me it was making me hide. Like in myself, I was hiding. In my life with my family, I was hiding. I was always isolating myself even from my family. I isolated myself from my children, from my parents, from my wife, from everyone. The only people I didn't isolate from were other people that smoked weed. Crazy stuff. So within my marriage, I guess it got to the point, the root cause is the drug use is what ended my marriage and failed that relationship. That's the root cause. There were other problems, but the root cause was my drug use. When I say there were other problems with family related issues, but it was my drug use that wouldn't allow me to confront those problems and sort them out. 20 years of active addiction, not 20 years at the time, but 20 years of active addiction manipulates your brain. It changes the way you think, the way you behave as an addict. It's crazy. I had problems with certain people in my family or with my in-laws that I couldn't confront because I would suppress them by using drugs. I would suppress those feelings and all that and just let it build up in the back of my head, which is something I was probably taught to do growing up, just to suppress things, but being in active addiction made that a hell of a lot worse. So this ended up to a point where my marriage was failing. We'd had a couple of shots at it, and at the end of the day I couldn't stop using. So got to the point where the marriage broke up, my wife and children moved out, and my drug use went through the roof, as well as drinking. So I was just basically living to go to work, to earn money, to come home, to pay my bills, and smoke weed and drink, and then do it all the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day, and it just did not stop. That was in my late 30s. So it got to the point where everything was failing, and my head was just going around in circles non-stop. I knew no other way to stop it except to keep using and suppressing those feelings, which started affecting everything that I had left in my life. And the major effects of that was on my children. I had my children every second weekend, not through a bad breakup, but just through my work and stuff. I could only have them at that time. But what I was doing was still heavily in active addiction and just using all the time. So my children were suffering in the way of, I wasn't present, not at all. I would leave them inside the house, go up, fix a meal sometimes. It was a half-assed job at it, and just spend the day isolating and smoking weed. So all the time my head, just couldn't stop it. All I wanted to do was fix things and stop using, but I couldn't do it. I don't know why. I could not do it. Then I met up with a childhood friend, very, very wonderful person she is, and amazing. And we grew up together as basically best friends, and then our lives went down separate paths. She took the right path, I took the wrong path, and we didn't basically see each other for 20 years. And then we just happened to come across each other. She was divorced, I was divorced, and we just had a bond. She introduced me to a program for drug addicts. And I had reservations about it at first because I've always thought I can do this on my own, so I can give up. So I started doing meetings for this fellowship, and I would do just not enough. I'd do enough to just get in there and start meeting people, but I don't know. It was funny at first. She would come along and support me, because that's just the sort of person she is. So I got to a point I would just do half-assed amount of meetings. I'd breeze in and out all the time, and then it actually got to a point, like it wouldn't be enough to stop me using it first. So in this period of time in my life, I was about 40, I would stop for a long period of time. For me, a long period of time, and that could be weeks to up to a month. And because I was spending my time with this other person, and we were having a great time. And I thought I've just got to keep doing that. But what was happening was my head. It's just crazy. My head, I couldn't stop that pattern of thinking that my brain had been taught by extensive drug use for 20 years. So doing the meetings and that and going to the fellowship was enough to stop me using, which is great. It was enough to stop me using, but I never thought I'd get into the program, the step work. It's a 12-step program. I thought, no, I've just got to stop using, and then things will get better. My head will sort itself out, and I'll start living life like a normal person. But that wasn't the case. Even got to the point I'd had extensive time off my drug of choice, but the behaviour, the way I think, and my actions and everything like that just was still the same. I couldn't believe it. It was still the same. I used to go to meetings and think, I don't need to do this stuff and that stuff, but I didn't realise what an addict was. So I wasn't in an active addiction at this point, but still an addict, and still am. And that was hard. It was very hard on the relationship I had with this woman. And even with significant clean time off my drug of choice, off the weed, I was still behaving the same, and you don't even know you're doing it. You don't even realise you're doing it. You think down this path, but not that path. You think, I've sorted this problem out, I've sorted this out, the way I do those things, but there's still all this stuff going on over here. And it got to a point, it was so hard on her. So that's when I started ramping my meetings up and actually started listening properly to the message. And then decided that, because in the meetings with people sharing and stories and the message in the meetings, I actually started listening properly to it and realised that nothing's going to change the way I think and act unless I get into this program. So I decided to do all the suggested things in the program, and I started that straight away after making the decision. And it has been life-changing. It really has. I'm still an addict. I still do some stupid things with my behaviour, but it is getting a hell of a lot better. Hell of a lot better. My relationship with my children, it's just gone a full 180 of how different that is. Because I'm present, I'm there, I'm actually there, and I'm accountable. I'm putting my words into action, and I've fixed relationships with my children, my parents, other people around me. I have nothing to do with my old life anymore. People, places, things, nothing at all. I moved away from where I lived for 20 plus years, sold a house, moved on, and that's been great. It's been the biggest, most positive thing I've done, and I can't stress enough how much better my relationship with my children is, especially when I take my kids to meetings. My kids have met people from my meetings. They're all great people, and they tell me they're proud of me for what I'm doing. One thing about doing the step work in this program is what it unearths and what it makes you realize what you've been doing, especially for that long, which is such an eye-opener. It unearths everything. There's no way around it. You get a sponsor, you do the step work. There's no way around it. There's no way around being dishonest. There's no way around not being accountable. There's no way around any of it. As long as if you're putting the work into the program properly, then that's it. You're going to change your life no matter what. It's all about commitment. And it's the most commitment I've ever made in my life. And that's the way it's staying. So I've been in recovery for just shy of 6 months now. I've been off my drug of choice for approximately 18 months, 16 to 18 months. My full clean time from drugs and alcohol is 6 months, just shy of 6 months. I'm actually 6 months next week, and I don't miss none of it. I don't miss any of it. I don't miss a drink. I don't miss drugs. I don't miss any of it. I don't miss the people. It's been really good. My new associates in the program are some of the best people I've ever met. We all have the same problems in life. We're all dealing with the same problems, and we're all dealing with our recovery the same. It's great to have such common ground with people and similarities with people who are doing and have had the same problems in their lives. The person that sponsors me, I believe that was meant to be. Our active addiction, and recovery and relationships are so similar. Yeah, it's been great. I'm looking forward to the rest of it. I go to meetings all the time. I'm actually currently doing 90 meetings in 90 days, which is 2/3 of the way through. I've got about 28 days left, and I may even continue to keep doing a meeting every day until I feel like I need to stop. I had reservations about that at first. I just thought it was going to interfere with everything. It was funny. I was wondering what to do with my children when I go to meetings, but I just take them to meetings with me, and it's great. I've actually instilled, I think, with my kids coming to meetings, and they get to hear the message as well from other recovering addicts, that, maybe I'm changing history. With my kids hearing the message of how drugs affect other people and their lives, and how it has affected their lives to the point of where they are at now, trying to make massive changes and differences to their life. So I guess all I can say is, if anyone's struggling with active addiction out there, it's easy to find. You just need to find a fellowship and work a program, a 12-step program, go to meetings and do the suggested things that are mentioned in the meetings. Listen to people's stories, because we're all the same and it all matters. People are welcome all the time. It's hard at first. You'll have a relapse, whatever I did. in not early recovery, sorry, I had a relapse earlier on when I was only doing meetings because I wasn't committed to it. I have not relapsed since doing the program in recovery. Thank God. That's something else I do now is I do things I thought I'd never do, like meditate and pray. It's not a religious program, but you just pray. You just pray to your higher power. There is something above us all that guides us through life. And I'm grateful for that because I wouldn't be where I am today without it. So if you're struggling, find a fellowship and get into it. It's the best thing I've done so far in my life. I'll be putting up some more videos just about my recovery and relationships, and hopefully someone gets something out of this. Thanks for watching.